Evidence of supernatural forces at work in Baz Luhrmann's film, Australia. In this first scene, we are shown a long-distance shot of Nala and his grandfather, King George, playing with a boomerang. This here is a stereotypical native Australian weapon, and by throwing the boomerang together, it shows that King George wants Nala to know the ways of his people, suggesting that some supernatural forces are at work. King George also speaks to Nala in their native language. We are drawn to these two characters because they are the only people in this shot, and their silhouettes allow us to focus on their movements, not what they actually look like. This can also help us focus more on the relationship between the two, rather than physical features. Behind Nala, we have King George and a sunset, which contains many warm toned colours. These colours are red, which represents love and passion, yellow, which represents friendship, and also the colour orange, which shows us happiness. These colours reflect the relationship between Nala and King George. In this scene, King George teaches Nala the traits of the Aboriginal people, one of which showing Nala the walkabout, which according to him is the blackfella way. He also shares that the most important of all is to tell them story. This expresses the idea of supernatural forces at work, as this isn't considered a normal trait learned for white Australians. Tell them story basically refers to the story of the Aboriginal legacy, which is why King George tells Nala it's the most important lesson to learn. In this next scene, King George teaches Nala how to fish with spears, and according to Nala, a magic song. Here we can see the traditional Aboriginal way of connecting with nature in order to help them in their daily lives. They use this gentle song to help them fish, which isn't often seen today. This can clearly show the supernatural forces at work in the film Australia, as singing songs to fish in order to catch them is considered as mystical. In this scene, Nala observes the white folk cross the river with their bulls, and we are shown a close-up shot of Nala's face. This close-up shot shows us Nala's emotions, which change from being happy and catching a fish with his grandfather to becoming saddened and bland when seeing the men move the cattle across the river. Here we can see the effects the white folk have on the Aboriginal community. Nala reveals to us in this scene that he is a half-caste and that the men call him mixed blood and creamy. This furthermore shows the effects the white men have on the Aboriginals and their supernatural beliefs. The children are no longer able to be taught the mystical ways of their culture, and they are slowly dying out and being segregated. In the next scene, King George can be seen calling the white fella bad spirit. This shows us that the Aboriginals see spirit in everything, especially in nature. It furthermore highlights their beliefs. Instead of calling them bad people, he calls them bad spirit, which connects to supernatural elements in the film. In this last scene here, Nala can be seen calming a horse using his supernatural connection to nature. In Aboriginal culture, the people believe that they have a connection with all living things in nature and that it is their duty to protect it. We can see this belief clearly when Nala calms the horse. He holds out his hand, speaks quietly, and breathes slowly, like shown in picture 1. The horse calms down and starts to move closer to Nala, showing us that he is no longer frightened. The connection that the Aboriginals believe to have with nature clearly shows supernatural forces at work in the film. The extreme close-up shown in picture 2 shows us how calm Nala was in this situation. In picture 3 it then shows Nala's success and connection with nature as he rides the horse out of the water. He truly believed that the connection he had with nature was strong and he had no need to panic. This furthermore highlights and conveys the theme of supernatural forces throughout the film Australia. When looking at the film Australia, we can clearly see evidences of supernatural forces at work. When looking at the scenes on previous slides, we clearly see the theme of supernatural forces at work through the use of camera techniques, dialogue, and characters in the film. Nala and King George help to express supernatural forces in the film through their dialogue and actions. All this helps to emphasize and highlight the important factors of an epic film such as Australia.